So Nintendo isn't exactly known for their great online. In fact, they're pretty well known for having some pretty garbage online. When you look at the Nintendo Switch Online currently, it isn't really much different from the old Wii U Online. It's very laggy, doesn't exactly work. But the only difference is that Nintendo now is offering a little bit of a service this time around where you get cold coins for every game you've bought or pre-ordered, and you sometimes get every 2 months 3 NES and SNES games, again combined between them. And not just that, actually, almost forgot. We're paying $20 for this. This isn't a free service like how it was with the Wii U. When you're paying $20 for an online service or whatever split you're doing with friends on the family plan, which is $35, and assuming you have two, it's already going to be worth it in that end. But regardless of that fact, we're paying, and it's not like it's a little bit of money. $20 into by yourself is kind of a decent chunk of money when you realize that the online isn't exactly any different from how it was on the Wii U. Yeah, maybe it's just a tad better, but it isn't really, I would say, noticeable to the fact that I can say, yep, Wii U Online was absolute garbage and Nintendo Switch Online is good. They are pretty comparable in that regard. It's pretty well known at this point that they haven't exactly changed their servers. When they made their entire pitch or their deal with DNA, their servers didn't exactly change, they just moved the location of their servers, contrary to what a lot of us believed, including myself, until the entire Monster Hunter Rise thing, where we learned that Nintendo's trying to switch out their servers. Now, that's kind of the part of the reason why I made this video, but that'll be at a later point when we'll talk about the actual quality of online. But we're gonna look more at the service right now. As a service, Nintendo Switch Online doesn't exactly provide us much. Now, don't get me wrong, the SNES and NES games that we get every 2 months at this point isn't exactly a bad thing. That's fine, but it's the types of games that Nintendo's providing us. Now, I'm not saying that Nintendo should be giving us RPGs, because if they gave us a game like Earthbound, then the value of the SNES Virtual Console isn't exactly fair. You can get hundreds of hours in Earthbound, very easily. That game is very replayable. Especially if they gave us a game like Chrono Trigger. That game has 13 endings. So if they come out with Chrono Trigger on the SNES Virtual Console on the Switch, what reason would I have to buy more games? But I'm not exactly talking about in this regard that Nintendo should bring over RPGs. That's not exactly the problem. The problem is that Nintendo isn't really looking at their first party games and saying, okay, we'll release these 3 over the course of the year between the NES and SNES. These will be great. No one will really complain. And this is kind of where I'm having the problem, is that it's not just the fact that we're not getting games now, because yeah, we can complain all day that Nintendo's not giving us amazing games on the NES or SNES Virtual Console, but it's also the fact that we've only had the NES and SNES Virtual Console that they provided us. We have nothing else. No GBA, no N64. Honestly, I don't think they should go farther than that. But yeah, these are 2 iconic consoles that they could provide us, yet we get nothing. And we have to wait 2 months for something? That's a little ridiculous in my opinion. They should at least provide us something to at least make it, I guess, kind of worth it. But that's essentially the brunt of the problem. It's Nintendo Switch Online as a service doesn't function. It isn't exactly worth your money, since you're gonna get this backlog of games you'll never play. You'll play maybe 2 of them for about it'll last you 40 hours at most, and then you're never gonna touch it ever again. Things get worse when you look at Nintendo's competitors like Microsoft and Sony. And I know some people are going to go in the comments and say Microsoft and Sony aren't exactly Nintendo's competitors because Nintendo doesn't see them as competitors. I get that. But in the gaming console space, they're technically competitors. So you have to compare them and say, okay, well, they're providing this, they're not providing this, so you gotta kind of like do that little comparison there. But yeah, look at Sony and Microsoft. They're providing games. They just last month, no, not last month, this month, the Sony has provided Final Fantasy VII, 2 other PS4 games, another PS5 game, and yeah, that's it. The only game I've really memorized was Final Fantasy VII, because that's honestly a great deal. That's amazing. I would pay the extra $60 for another year just to play Final Fantasy VII. I'd be down for that, and I think that's completely valid, because it adds value to the online service. Microsoft has Game Pass. I think Microsoft has this thing where you can get gold with Game Pass or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I know Microsoft's value is there to a degree. I'm not exactly sure what the ecosystem is, so this is probably a terrible example, and a lot of you are probably going to say something in the comments. I can kind of feel that already. But yeah, Nintendo's just extremely behind, and I know I haven't exactly talked about the online and how it like functions and just really how it's laggy, which I think I'll just do that as another video, just because I kind of want to dedicate this more as a service video. Because Nintendo Switch Online as a service is absolute garbage, and it's not exactly worth the $20 or whatever you're gonna pay. When Nintendo looks at their online and they see like around 10 million people have online, it isn't exactly much of a surprise. It isn't worth the money to really get online, because it's no different from the Wii U Online. And as a service, nothing's provided. I can say this 20 times. I know I've said this multiple times in the video, but I cannot stress this fact enough. It isn't worth the money that Nintendo is really asking. $20 is actually too much for Nintendo Switch Online as a service. It isn't worth it. And it kind of feels like Nintendo's somewhat noticed this with how they want to switch out servers for games, but there's no guarantee that current games are going to change. And this is something I'll maybe talk in another video as a follow-up, but yeah, Nintendo has a problem, and I kind of feel like they're starting to fix it, and they are like actively aware of it, but it's really frustrating that it's been like this for over 2 years, and now Nintendo is thinking, okay, maybe we should change servers. I don't know. And it's just really frustrating. Really is. Yeah, honestly, this is the end of the video. I'll have a follow-up regarding specifics like, I guess, how online functions with Mario Kart 8 and Splatoon 2 and whatever else. And I won't exactly do comparisons. I was thinking maybe booting up the old Wii U again, just checking out the online, really feeling it out, which actually sounds terrible from how I worded that, but yeah, that's the video, guys. If you guys liked the video, consider hitting the like button, consider subscribing would be greatly appreciated. My socials are in the description. Tell me what you guys think about Nintendo Switch Online in the comments down below, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.